Before we get started on Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni the Buddha's teachings throughout his life, and so it's categorized in the Dhammapada by topic. So each chapter is covering a specific topic or a type of metaphor for whatever teachings are in the verses. But all the verses have background stories of why they were told, and so I'll go through that as usual and then give my commentary. But today we'll be covering verse 56. And then we only have 3 more verses to go, which I hope I would be able to finish next week, maybe. But we're in verse 56, so I'll recite the verse and give the story behind it, and I'll go into my commentary. So verse 56 goes, "The scents of Tagara and of sandalwood are very faint, but the scent or the reputation of the virtuous is the strongest. It spreads even to the abodes of the devas." Again, the scents of Tagara and of sandalwood are very faint, but the scent, the reputation of the virtuous is the strongest. It spreads even to the abodes of the devas. So in the previous 2 verses, the metaphor of the scent of flowers was being compared to the scent of virtuous ones or enlightened monks or nuns. And we've discussed that the analogy of scent here doesn't literally mean like scent of smell, right? Because enlightenment doesn't have necessarily a scent to it. But the scent here is a reference to the kind of like the energy or the reputation of virtuous beings. And so this is comparing that, even though the scent of Tagara, which is a type of flower, has a very distinct smell to it, and the scent of sandalwood, right, which is the incense that we light here. So that has a distinct scent. But the verse is kind of referencing that the fragrances of Tagara or sandal is pretty faint, right? And it's only smelled within the vicinity of the flower that's in or the incense this is in. So if you walk outside and go down the steps a few steps, you'll probably no longer be able to smell the scent of the incense, right? And so it's limited to its location, it's limited to its space and place that it's in. But the scent of virtuous persons, which symbolizes like their reputation and their moral influence, that is depicted as a kind of overbearingly fragrant or powerful scent. And this scent kind of transcends the earthly boundaries, reaching even to the realms of the devas. And the devas here are kind of the heavenly beings, right? So of the 6 realms of existence that we're in, the devas is the 6th, it's the highest of our 6 realms. And so they're kind of heavenly beings. And these are beings that, whether you want to believe this is an actual place or state of mind, my belief is a state of mind, but the characteristics of devas are people who are very blessed in life, right? They have a crazy amount of money, right? They have power, they have reputation, but they are also beings that are kind of influential in the world, and they actually do help. They do some charity, they do some good in the world, right? They're helping people. Versus the level of this 5th realm of existence, the asuras, are also heavenly beings, but they're a little bit more stingy. So think of people who also have money and wealth and power and status, but don't really do any good with it, right? Instead of helping society or helping the world, they seek to gain more money, to gain more fame, to gain more status and power and whatnot. And so there's kind of both at the same level, but one's just a more altruistic. But anyway, so it's stating that even the scent of the sandalwood or tagar is limited, but the scent of the virtuous one, and here literally it's referencing specifically to an arhat, a fully enlightened being, that their scent can reach to these heavenly realms of the devas. So anyway, so the story of this verse was given when Mahakashyapa, when one of the Buddha's chief disciples, Mahakashyapa was known for his ascetic practices. So in asceticism, there are 12 ascetic practices, which I'm not going to list because I don't know all of them. but the three main ones, the three main ascetic practices, is that one only wears old or ragged robes, right? These robes that were collected either from the dead or from the dying or from even just thrown out. So that's one. The second ascetic practice is only going for alms food, right? So you're not asking for food, you're not buying food, you're simply going out into the town or to the village and waiting for someone to offer you food, right? So sometimes we'll see or read in Buddhist texts where it's referencing alms, there's a I don't want to say mistranslation, but there's a misrepresentation of what that means. Because a lot of times we'll see that stating that the monks go out begging for alms, but that's not the case. There's no begging, right? We're not going, begging implies that when I go out for alms, I'm asking for food, right? But that's not the case. In the Mahayana tradition, we don't typically go out for alms round, right? But in Theravada traditions, so the traditions in Thailand, Burma, Laos, Sri Lanka, right? These are Theravada dominated countries. They do go out for alms round. And so when they go out for alms round, their alms bowl is actually hidden behind the robe, right? So it's indicating that I'm not asking for food. If someone down the road, right, bows down and kneels down and makes the offering, then the monk will disclose their alms bowl, and then will accept whatever food is put into the bowl. So just keep that in mind whenever you hear the word begging for alms. That's not the case. It's just seeking alms is the correct terminology. So that's the second ascetic practice. The third ascetic practice is living in solitary. So either living in a cave or living under a tree or just out in the open. Right? Those are the three types of solitary living, either in a cave, under a tree, or out in the open field. So those are the three main ascetic practices that are the most still used to this day for a lot of monks and nuns. And so, but Mahakashyapa was known for his ascetic practices. He actually didn't even live in the monastery with the Buddha. He actually did live out in a cave on his own, and he went out for alms round on his own. So because of that, the story of this verse was one day when Mahakashyapa was going out for alms rounds. Actually, let me backtrack. So Mahakashyapa was actually in what is called Nirodha Samapati, which is a state of cessation almost. And so meaning that when an arhat, or when any enlightened being goes into deep meditative practices, they enter the jhanas. The jhanas are these deep states of consciousness. And there's eight stages of jhana. The first for the material jhanas and the last for the immaterial jhanas. And so as an arhat, or enlightened being, someone who's able to get to the 8th stage of jhana is able to meditate for 7 days straight. An unenlightened being cannot do this. An enlightened being can sit in this meditation, the state of absorption, right? The state of the 8th material jhana is the base of neither perception nor non-perception. So they're literally in the state of complete cessation of all feelings and forms, and like they just almost don't exist. It's almost like a nirvanic state of mind. So this is kind of a big deal because this is uncommon for this is an uncommon, what's the word I'm looking for, situation for most monastics that were not enlightened yet. So as he emerged from the samadhi, or as he emerged from this meditation after 7 days, then he decided it's time to go out for alms. And traditionally it is told that the first person to give a monk or a nun that has emerged from this nirodha meditation, that they accumulate a much greater merit than the preceding offerings. And so because Mahakashyapa, in this case, right, because we're referencing the scent of virtue, he has attained, he has the scent of virtue that we've read in the verse. And so since this scent of virtue is able to permeate all the way up to the Deva realms, the Devas knew about this and Mahakashyapa has emerged from his Nirodha meditation. We should go offer alms to him and give him, to seek his blessing for us to gain merit. And so the story goes that a handful of these heavenly beings descended from their realm and visited Mahakashyapa as he was walking to this village, begging him to allow them to give him alms. He said, no, go away. I don't want you to give me alms. The reason he's saying no, go away, is because devas are in a realm of complete bliss, right? They have no suffering, they have no dissatisfaction, they don't have no ill will, there's no negativity, there's no unwholesomeness. It's a complete paradise, right? And so they don't have any room to create any good or bad karma, right? They don't have the means to be able to do that because everything is just perfect. There's no reason to do any good or do any bad. And so they have no chance to gain merit. And so that's why they descended, so that they can gain merit, so they can continue living in the stable realm or continue to be reborn in an even higher state of existence. But Mahakashyapa was a monk that was known for only requesting or only going into poor areas of the villages and cities so that the poor people have the opportunity to gain merit versus, I think it was Subhuti, one of the other chief disciples of the Buddha, would go only to the homes of rich people so that they can continue being fortunate. But alas, they're both admonished by the Buddha and saying you both are discriminating between the poor and the rich, where you should just go and receive whatever is given. So anyway, so the devas that descended and requested 3 times from Mahakashyapa to allow them to give them alms, he said, no, I don't want you to give me, I don't want alms from you, blah, blah, blah. They continued still to push and push and push. But finally, Mahakashyapa snapped his fingers and said to go away. And there's I don't know if it's a tradition, but there's a thing that when you snap your fingers, this is the final last answer. This is my final last decision. So the beings knew when they left, they fled. They went back to the Deva realm. As they went up, they're all like disappointed. I'm like, we didn't get to give Mahakashyapa alms. And so Sakara, which is the king of Devas, and his wife Sujata, saw these beings. They're like, what's wrong? They're like, well, we tried to give Mahakashyapa, who just emerged from Nirodha Samapatti, and we were trying to give him alms and receive merit, but he didn't allow us to give him any alms. He basically shooed us away. And so the king and his wife were like, well, let us try. I'm going to go down and try that. But instead, going in their original form, they went down and kind of changed their form. So the king changed his form to a weaver, and his wife just changed into a woman. And they're depicted as this very old, decrepit couple, right? And so, since Mahakashyapa is looking for like the poorest of the poor, right, to allow them to gain that merit, the king and his wife looked like that. They looked the role of very poor people. And so Mahakashyapa saw them from a distance and said, okay, these are the people I want to give I want to allow it to give me alms this time. And so the Mahakashyapa went to their hut and saw that the wife was there ready to give alms. And King Sakara, who again is representing as this very old, decrepit old man, he even played the part real well. He was like, "Oh, I hear someone at the door. Who is it? Wife, tell me who it is." And the wife was like, she's like, telling Mahakashyapa, "Venerable Sir, I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed that my husband can't tell who you are," because Kashyapa was a pretty well-known monk in the area. And so Kashyapa gave his bowl to the wife, and she filled it with rice and curry. And this curry was so fragrant that it was noticeable around the vicinity of this hut and around the area. And it kind of permeated through the small village. So then Mahakashyapa was kind of like, this is a little suspect. If you're super, super poor, how are you able to afford this delicious smelling curry, right? There's something off here. There's something a little fishy going on. So Mahakashyapa noticed that and asked the couple, "Who are you? Who are you really?" And of course, as devas are unable to lie, and so they kind of spilled the beans and said, "Venerable Sir, we're sorry that we impersonated this old couple, but I am Sakara and I am Sujata." And Mahakashyapa was kind of disappointed in this and was like, "How dare you come and misrepresent who you are? And you're taking away this valuable merit that is meant for the poor so they can better their lives and have a better rebirth in the future. And you took that opportunity from them," and kind of admonished them for doing that. But the king and his wife were apologetic, but they just continued to say that they wanted the merit too, that they want to be able to gain merit as well. But again, Mahakashyapa still admonished them for it. And then the king was like, "Well, even though I deceived you, am I still going to gain merit from this?" And Mahakashyapa was like, "Yeah, you will. It's still a good deed. But the point is you took this opportunity for this really big, amplified opportunity for merit away from someone else who is more deserving of it." And so as soon as he said, "Yes, you still gain merit," the story goes that the king kind of risen into the sky and just whirling around, like praising that he was able to give alms to Mahakashyapa. And then down at the monastery where the Buddha was, he was teaching the monks at the time, and he kind of heard Sakaya's cries, or not cries, but I guess cry, I'm going to say cries for the merit he just gained from this opportunity that he gave to Kashyapa. And the Buddha told his disciples at the time, "Do you hear those cries? Do you hear those whispers in the sky of of Sakara praising himself for giving alms to Kashyapa?" And the disciples were like, "Yeah, we hear that." And that's when he gave this verse. Again, the verse says, "The scents of Tagara and of sandalwood are very faint, but the scent or the reputation of the virtuous is the strongest. It spreads even to the abodes of the devas." The Buddha also kind of gave another verse prior to this. It's not in the Dhammapada, but still a known verse, and that goes, "The alms-gathering monk, self-supporting, not nourishing another, such a one the devas envy. One at peace, one who is all the time mindful." So that's the story. It's kind of a funny story to me. I think it's like a comedy at this point, after what Sakara and his wife did. But again, it's kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier, in that the scent or the reputation of virtue that we do in this world, right, is kind of one of our main objectives as Buddhists, or as practitioners, or mindful practitioners, because in Buddhism, virtue encompasses all the qualities of generosity and compassion. Generosity, patience, morality, and wisdom, right? These are the four base qualities that we need to work on or work toward in order for us to be able to purify our minds, be able to purify our speech, thought, and actions, and to gain the necessary knowledge, to gain the necessary wisdom to attain enlightenment, or at least some form of enlightenment before the end of our lives. This verse also describes kind of a virtue as a protective power. So when we are able to monitor ourselves and monitor the things that we think, say, and do, right, we're able to protect ourselves from regret or remorse, and be able to be able to also protect others by following morality. Morality here is referencing specifically to the 5 precepts of Buddhists. The 5 precepts are the kind of guideline to be able to live a correct, virtuous, wholesome life. 5 precepts are to abstain from taking life, to abstain from lying, to abstain from stealing, to abstain from sexual misconduct, and to abstain from taking intoxicants. And these are, of course, not laws by any means, right? It's not kind of a do this or you'll go to hell kind of a metaphor, but they're simply just guidelines to be able to live a good, virtuous life, because these precepts are universal. They're not anything that's undoable, right? They're not something that's impossible to do. It's easy to abstain from taking life, obviously, right? If you take life, you destroy your life and you destroy the life of the people you took, right? So now you've destroyed your life, you're going to go to prison, because obviously nowadays no one can really get away from murder, but you're going to go to prison, so you've ruined your life. You've ruined the life of the person you've killed, and ruined the life of the people that love that person, their family and their friends and their significant others or their children. So you've ruined multiple lives by just one life. And so we abstain from killing, because if you abstain from killing, you're protecting yourself, meaning that you have a clear conscience of not killing somebody. You're protecting yourself by not being doing something illegal and immoral, right? And you're protecting the lives of others. To abstain from lying is, again, still protection against yourself, because all lies, in one way, shape, or form, will always be revealed, right? No lie is ever a secret for too long. And so lying is also, especially when the intention of lying is to hurt or to have an advantage over something or someone, to get what you want in a unwholesome way. So if you're lying, let's say, in your resume, or you're lying to your employer, they have skills that you don't have, or you lie about being able to do something that you're not able to do, or that you've obtained something that you have not yet attained, is harmful to yourself and to others, especially if you lie about something that someone else is relying upon from you, and you're not able to do it. Then we abstain from sexual misconduct. And this is kind of a also misrepresented sometimes in books, because sexual misconduct doesn't mean to abstain from sex. It just means to practice correct sex, I guess. Meaning that you're not sleeping with someone who's in a relationship, or not married. You're not sleeping with people that could become harmful, right? Knowing people that may be prostitutes or drug addicts, or something that may be potentially harmful in a sexually transmitted disease type of thing, right? Or vice versa. And so you're protecting yourself from causing harm to yourself and to your body, and you're protecting the livelihood of others, especially if if they're married or in a committed relationship. Now you've potentially broken that up. Then abstaining from stealing, again, this kind of goes along with the lying one, right? The intention of stealing here is much more noticeable, I think, than lying, because when you're stealing, here it's specifically taking possession of things that are not yours or given, right? So this means, and probably do this all the time, especially if you worked in an office, right? We take pens and paper and other stuff from the office. This is technically stealing, right? Because no one gave it to you. No one gave you permission to take it. And so this is a form of stealing still. Even if you're taking a pen from your significant other, from your roommate, right? Oh, I'm going to borrow this pen. I'm going to use it. That's still stealing, right? No one's giving you permission. You have to ask permission even to use a pen. But this is, of course, can be even more dramatic, stealing people's possessions or money or car or houses or reputation even, right? If you've stolen something from an employer, that cause reputation to go down. Then, of course, abstaining from intoxicants. And this is referencing, of course, to drugs and alcohol. And we already know the dangers of drugs and alcohol in the world, right? Drunk driving is still the #1 cause of death in this country. And so we know already the harmfulness of that. And so it's kind of like, it's not necessarily stating to not do it, but don't do it to the extent that it becomes mind altering. Like if you can't think, you can't do something coherently while under the influence, then you've broken this precept. And so again, still protecting yourself and protecting others, because if you're drunk driving, for instance, and you cause an accident, you have a very, very high potential of either harming yourself, killing yourself, and or harming others or killing others. And so this goes back to taking life. You've ruined your life, you've taken your own life, and you've taken the lives of others potentially. And so looking at these precepts are not rules or commandments, right? These are common sense things to do, to the right things to do in life. But these are the precepts that protect you from harm. They protect you from unwholesomeness. They protect you from being able to not gain any good merit or virtue in life. The verse also kind of implies that our actions kind of reverberate beyond the earthly realm. And it's said here that we can take this literally or not, but the point remains that we don't know how far-reaching our efforts or words or actions may be, but we do know that a life dominated by kindness and generosity is more rewarding than one characterized by cruelty and stinginess. And we can appreciate this distinction when we observe it in others, right? Just think of when you see a kind act from someone else. Does that not make you feel good? Right? Does that not make you kind of smile and be like, oh, there's still goodness in humanity, right? And so, but when we see the things that are cruel or hurtful or harmful, we have a very negative aspect to that, right? We have a negative view toward that, I hope. And we don't want to see that. We don't want to do that. And so when we see the kindness and generosity and compassion in others, this should, within ourselves, encourage us to do the same, to do more, to be able to practice more compassion, to practice more generosity, to practice more patience with ourselves and with others. And this happens through, at least in our practice, this happens through several different ways. But the most common and I guess easiest way is doing it through meditation. Because if we're doing meditation, specifically Buddhist meditation, right? Because there's meditations out in the world now that, like mindfulness practices and transcendental meditations and all these other fluffy new age stuff, right? Which don't really do anything, right? There's no point, there's no true point to them. Yeah, they may calm you a little bit and ease your anxiety a little bit, but we don't care about your anxiety or your mentality, because these are actually side effects of meditation anyway. So when you're practicing Buddhist meditation, the side effects of practicing that is that you're more calm, is that you're less stressed, is that you're less anxious about things, right? Whereas those practices of transcendental and mindfulness practices all only aim to achieve these little side effects, right? But we don't worry about that because those things will naturally arise during your meditation practice anyway. So when we practice true meditation practice, either samatha or vipassana meditation, right, concentration or contemplation meditation, this is the form of how we are able to cleanse, purify our mind. We can do this through different types of meditation, right? And so if we're doing, like for instance, the jhanas I spoke about earlier, the jhanas can only be achieved in samatha dhyana, samatha concentration meditation. And these are difficult states of mind to get to, especially for lay people. So it's not a requirement necessarily for lay practitioners. If it happens, it happens. But the process to achieve jhana is extremely difficult, and it's not recommended for lay people to do. But the point is through jhana practice, this is where we can tame and purify our minds, because we're purifying the negativity that comes in. We're purifying the unwholesome thought, speech, and action that we do in life. And so through meditation, through cleansing or purifying the mind of all our defilements, specifically the three poisons of ignorance, greed, and anger, right? And these are the hooks that hold us into this samsaric existence, right? Right now we're in samsara. This is the cyclic existence of life and rebirth over and over again. And we're stuck in samsara until we're able to escape it. And the only way to escape it is to eradicate the three poisons of ignorance, greed, and anger. And the attainment of the Eightfold Path. The 12 links of dependent origination. Partitya Samutpada. And so the 12 links of dependent origination is essentially the reasons of why we are reborn, the reasons why we have come into existence and go out of existence and coming back into existence. And the main reason of why that happens is because of ignorance. The very first link is ignorance. And ignorance in Buddhism doesn't mean stupidity, that you're dumb, that you don't know anything. But it literally means to not know. We are ignorant because we do not know. And here it's referencing not knowing the true reality of things. This is a big topic all on its own, but I can go on for 3 days talking about this, but I'm trying to summarize it. And just meaning that our ignorance is something that is habitual to us. It is something that we don't even think of or recognize or know that we're doing. And you can see this in yourself if whenever you see something that you like or do not like, that is ignorance. When you're making comparisons, that is ignorance. When you have some conceit, which is also a form of comparing, is also ignorance. Because now you're stating, this is beautiful and this is ugly. This is tall and this is short. They're handsome, they're ugly. They're attractive, they're not attractive. This tastes good, this doesn't taste good. But those opinions are simply only yours. And I might have different opinions. So if we have opposing opinions, who's right and who's wrong? There's no telling. So that is ignorance. So instead of making comparisons of this is good and this is bad, this is ugly and this is beautiful, it is what it is. This is it. You don't have to say this is ugly, this is beautiful, because nobody cares about that. Enlightenment doesn't care about that. When you go into a state of enlightenment, especially when you go into the Nirodha Samadhi, right, the meditation of cessation, it's a cessation of perception and non-perception, meaning there's zero distinctions. In this state of mind, this is the 8th jhana, this is the highest level of jhana one can achieve. It is the base of perception and non-perception. What is perception? Actual question. What is perception? Yes. Your point of view, your ideas, beliefs, these are all perceptions. Perceptions are made up, basically, right? Perceptions are made up by the experiences that you've had in life. And this is why you say this is good and this is bad, this is beautiful, and this is ugly. Because you have the expectation of how things should be, or how you want things to be. This is all based on perception. And so when we enter the eighth jhana of perception and non-perception, nothing exists. You're literally in just a complete state of nothingness, which is actually the seventh jhana, the base of nothingness. Right? And so the base of perception, non-perception, perception is even more powerful than that. And so this is why it's sometimes called the state of nirvanic meditation. This is not nirvana. This is not liberation, right? This is where a lot of mistakes happen. Because when people enter jhana, especially in the higher stages of jhana, because there's no perception, there's no non-perception, there's no feeling of the senses, right? You lose all sense of bodily functions. Because none of these exist anymore in the state of mind, people mistake this for nirvana. They mistake this for enlightenment, and it is not. Because we cannot attain enlightenment through jhanas. You cannot attain liberation through jhanas. You cannot attain any sort of wisdom through jhana. Jhana is simply a practice and a form of concentration, an extremely powerful form of concentration. Enlightenment, or moments of enlightenment, or moments of realization can only happen through vipassana meditation, through insight meditation, or contemplation. This is where we can achieve true nirvana. And this is something, I call it contemplation meditation. It's technically called insight, but insight is gained from contemplation. And contemplation here just means literally contemplating the way things are, right? So this is where we try to eradicate that ignorance of not knowing, is through vipassana. I went on a tangent. I'm off topic again, but it's okay. My point is here, or the point of this verse at least, is to help us see the difference between our ordinary life of unenlightenment and the life of someone that is enlightened, and the virtues that they're able to cause, right? When you're an enlightened person, you literally have an assembly of people that want to honor you, that want to provide you those alms, because you're enlightened, or at least you've attained the nirodha, samadhi, cessation. We're all able to achieve that, of course. We all 100% have the ability to become enlightened. There's no doubt about that. I'm not fully enlightened, but I can guarantee each and every one of you that you will all become enlightened eventually. Maybe not in this life, maybe not in the next life, but eventually you'll become enlightened. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, next life is so far away, or any future lives is so far away. I don't want to wait that long. I don't want to wait another 100, 1,000, million lifetimes to become enlightened. Well, you have the power to change that, honestly. So I can't push you to practice. I can't push enlightenment on you. I can't force you to become enlightened. You have the power. You have that ability to do as much or as little as you want in life to attain enlightenment. Of course, I took the dramatic thing and became a monk, right? That's the, to me, that was my, I guess, calling, right? That was my way of saying, I cannot be in the world and of the world and attain enlightenment. There's no way, absolutely no way. Yes, there are very, very, very rare occasions where lay people can attain enlightenment. So there's 4 levels of the first 4 levels of enlightenment: Srotapatthana, or stream enter, Sakadagamin, once returner, anagamin, non-returner in the arhat, a full enlightened being. So as lay people, you have the ability to achieve at least the first 3 levels, Sotapadana, Sakadagamin, and Anagamin. You have the capability to do that. But unfortunately, as a layperson, we cannot attain full enlightenment as an arhat. You have to leave the world. And so part of this kind of teaching here is a virtuous being is in the world, but not of the world, right? Because Kashyapa, even though he's an arhat, and he's an ascetic, he still has to be in the world to get alms, right? He still has to be in the world to be able to live in a cave. He has to still be in the world to gather old robes to make new robes, right? But he's not of the world. Being of the world means you're working, you have a career, you're making money, you're worrying about reputation, you're worrying about your savings, you're worrying about your future. This is being of the world. So monastics, monks and nuns, we are in the world, but we're not of the world. Because being monk and nun is our of the world, is our vocation, and this is our livelihood. This isn't something that we go out and make money from, right? So there's a better opportunity in the monastery to become enlightened. Not a better opportunity, fantastic more opportunity, I'm saying. Also not guaranteed. It all has to do with your diligence, with your practice. Right? We cannot, even if you're in the monastery, it's not a guarantee you would even attain any wisdom at all, right? Just because the environment's conducive doesn't mean your mind is conducive to receive the teachings, to receive the insights from the teachers or from the monks and nuns. And unfortunately, we see that a lot in the world. People kind of become monks and nuns to escape the world. And that's unfortunately a very harmful decision. It harms the Sangha, it harms the community of practitioners. It takes away resources from people that need it, right? Same thing that Mahakashyapa did with the devas that ascended from the realm. He denied them, denied their desire to give Kashyapa alms because he said, you don't need it. You don't need to gain merits. You're already a deva. You're already in the heavenly realm. Why do you need more merits? And so instead he sought out people who did need the merits, right? The poor and the decrepit. I don't know why I keep saying decrepit, but the poor, the really poor, the poor of the poorest. So likewise, our practice is contingent on your ability to want to practice, your ability to want to attain enlightenment, your ability to want to sever the ties of suffering that you live in and to gain the freedom of the practice, to gain the freedom from being of the world. Because being of the world is your lock. It is your cage and lock that holds you into the realm of samsara. Okay, I've overspoken. So I'm gonna stop there. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts. Yes. The more merit you have, the easier it is to practice, and the easier it is to be reborn in a better environment that is more conducive to the practice. So think of people who live in remote areas of the world, who have no means or resources to gain outside knowledge. They have no phone, no computer, no internet. They don't know what's out in there in the world, right? They're ignorant to what's around them. And so they have no way to better themselves. They don't know the Dharma. They don't know anything about being able to volunteer or to do virtuous acts or deeds. And so they're kind of stuck, right? They don't have the means to do anything helpful. But those that do, luckily we live in a time and place where we have those resources, and we can use those teachings and resources to do better for ourselves and for the community. And this gaining merit isn't this imaginary cash register, right? Merit is just the purification of our defilements. Because if you have a negative mindset or an unwholesome mindset where you're not very generous, you're not very giving, you're not really compassionate to people, you're not very kind most of the time, right? You're only thinking about yourself and what your needs are and what you want to do for yourself. So you're not doing any good to you or to others in the world. But when you do good and you keep merit in mind and create virtuous thoughts, speech, and actions, this changes your mindset to see things differently, that you do want to do better for yourself and for others. And so this wanting to do better motivates you to practice more deeply, to want to be able to continue the practice, be able to want to learn more and practice more and attain a better state of mind and or life in future lives. Yes, Joseph.
So merit helps for a favorable rebirth. If you happen to be one of the merit, you can merit. So how much of that merit can make the condition that ultimately lead the person to the right path, ultimately, eventually, to enlightenment? So then the argument becomes, how much free will is there exactly in that statement? Because if you have merit and the conditions of merit help you go toward enlightenment more closer, then it is about the already established conditions within oneself that lead the person toward that ultimate decision, or that kind of like pushing them, sort of like determinism in a way, that pushes them toward those things. The qualities of one's merit from a past life are pushing them toward more realization, toward enlightenment. So they're already seeds, so to speak. It's planted. Mm-hmm. So one innately kind of goes toward their nature. So if you're going toward your nature, then we're talking and all eventually arrive at universal enlightenment. Then there's a state of there seems to be determinism in that, and not much free will flexibility.
I'm not going to entertain your free will point, because that's nothing to do with this. Think of merit like education. If you have no education, higher degree meaning, right, a college degree or beyond, you may think of yourself as uneducated, uninformed, not very conducive to corporate life or whatnot, right? Sometimes you need a degree to have status or whatnot. But so if we think of a degree, higher degrees as merit, right? The higher degree you have, especially in a very niche area like anything in STEM, for instance, right? And so if you want to become a chemical engineer, well, you have to have a degree in chemical engineering, right? You can't just go out of high school and go up to NASA and be like, yo, I want to work for you. I want to become one of your engineers. Like, no, that's not going to happen, right? But then you get the degree, you work toward it, you do what you need to do to apply yourself to have a better life, and then you can go back to NASA and be like, okay, here's my degrees, here's all the jobs I've had, here are my internships, here's this paper I published. Now they're more likely to look at you and say, okay, come on in. You come on into this much more beneficial life. So merit isn't something that's necessarily invisible, right? I mean, it's invisible because it's a mind state, but it's nothing that is unchangeable. It's not like fate, right? We don't believe in fate in Buddhism. We believe in karma, because karma is able to change. You can change your life, right? You have the ability to, if you're born into, let's say, if you're born into in a place that is impoverished or really poor or dangerous, right? As you get old and you see that and you recognize this place is dangerous, this place is old, this place is not very safe, right? That hopefully will give you the motivation to want to seek out other opportunities and move on, right? Otherwise, if you're just content, then you're never going to be able to change. You won't be able to better your life. So then if you're able to recognize that, I'm like, okay, well, I don't have money to go to college. Well, maybe I'll join the military for a few years, get the GI Bill, and then I can go to college and have it paid for. Then they have more opportunities for better jobs, more opportunities for better lifestyles, etc., right? But we were all born according to our past karma. And I would like to believe that since you're here and you've discovered the Dharma, that in a past life, you've tasted it, and now you're just coming back to what feels natural, right? But imagine you living in the desert in the middle of nowhere. No internet, no computer, no books, no knowledge of the world beyond your little desert hut. Where are the opportunities to better yourself, to gain merit, to gain wisdom, to gain enlightenment? You don't have it because you don't have the means to get to it. You can also, it's not really a merit thing, it's more of a karmic thing, but you can also gauge the kind of merit you have according to your present life, right? Because people are always like, oh, I want to know what my past lives were. Why? Why does that matter? Like, to me, it baffles me that people are so obsessed with wanting to know past lives. And it's not, what are you going to do about it? If you know your past lives, does that change anything? No, you're still where you are. You are still who you are. It changes nothing, right? But you can gauge how good or bad your past life was according to your present life. So if you are now in a life where your life is stable, meaning you have a house, you have a roof on your head, you have a job, you're able to take care of yourself, maybe you're able to take care of others, that's a pretty fortunate life to have, because not everybody can say that, right? And so hopefully this will bring to mind that, okay, well, in a past life, I must have been good enough or created good deeds and merit to have a good life now. If you continue doing good deeds and good merit now, then your next life will be even better, and so on and so forth, right? You can build up on that karma, and that good karma, and that merit. Yeah, I'll stop there. It's a long answer. I'm over as usual, but any other questions? Yes. 100%. Because karma can be broken down into several different categories. Because again, Buddhism is all about lists, right? There's a million lists of everything. Karma also has lists. But the two main kind of lists is self-karma, meaning the karma that you own, and group karma, which is what's the word? Not universal. What's another word for community, like on a larger scale? No. That's what happens when I don't have no coffee. Anyway, but there's karma for yourself and karma that is based on the group in you're in. So in this case, it could be either the community that you're part of or the country that you're part of, right? And so when our state of the world as it is right now, let's stick to our country, as it is right now, well, this is because the whole country in its past had done really bad things in its karma. So now we're all kind of paying for that in ways, right? You can think of the wars, think of other countries, how they were defeated, think of the earthquake that just happened recently in Myanmar and Thailand and places around there. These are Buddhist countries, right? These are Buddhist countries. These should be countries that have a lot of good merit, a lot of good karma. But again, karma can hit you in either this lifetime, in your very next lifetime, or any lifetime in the future. So this could just mean, well, these countries, even though they're Buddhist for the last 2,000 years, but prior to that, maybe they did really bad things as well. Like any other country, they probably try to colonize other countries and started wars to gather more people and slaves and this and that. So everybody has history. Everything has history. Everywhere has history. And since we're part of that country or community, we unfortunately have to taste a little bit of that karma, whether good or bad. So we are now unfortunately reaping, we've been reaping negative karma in this country for decades at this point, I feel like, but I hope that eventually it'll end. I don't think it will, but we've done a lot of terrible things in the past few hundred years, so that's thousands of lifetimes of payback, essentially. But we can do little things, right? Matt's not here today, but Matt, one of our members, has this fantasy of wanting to save the world. I'm like, get out of here. The world will become extinct before you can save the world. 100%. Absolutely. There's no way. Even as a monk, right? Even as bodhisattvas, where we want to save all sentient beings in all 10 directions, there's still no way. There's still no way. So I'm like, let the world end, and then when it comes back, then we can worry about saving it. But right now, we cannot do that. So I'm always emphasizing, instead of trying to want to save the world, come back a little bit, right? Like, scale down a lot. Like, worry about yourself first. That's the most important thing. You have to be able to save yourself in order to save others. You cannot teach others enlightenment unless you are enlightened. You cannot teach others Dharma unless you know the Dharma. You can't, if you're a teacher, if you're a med student, you're learning from other doctors, not from somebody on the road just read a book about medicine, right? And so worry about your own little community first. Worry about yourself, worry about your community, or even smaller than that, worry about yourself, worry about your friends and family, and then your community, and then your state, and then your country, and then you can worry about the rest of the world. But you have to start small and expand out, right? If you threw a rock into a lake, the waves don't start out first at the very end and come in. No, they start from the small and they work their way out. Likewise, our practice, our desire for enlightenment has to be the same as that rock. It has to start from the little circle first and then it expands out. So yes, we are reaping the karmic activities of this country. But again, we can change that slightly. Because if you become a virtuous person, have that scent that is visible from heavenly realms, for instance. Actually, let me rephrase that. If you are able to do good for yourself and for your community, others will see that, right? And I hope, at least when I see people doing good, right, whether you're volunteering or whether you're doing something for the community, to me that inspires me that people are still doing benefit for others. And that makes me want to do even more than I already am, right? So it kind of becomes a domino effect. So when you do good and other people see it, then it encourages them to also want to do good and spread the goodness and whatnot. And then other people will see that, and then more people will see that, so it becomes a domino effect, right? So that's the way that's the only way where we can change the kind of communal karma. Starting good, starting small, and work our way out. Of course, in a larger scale of the world, still, I believe it's still impossible, but you never know. I could be wrong. In a few hundred years, maybe this will be paradise. I don't know. I doubt it, but who knows? It may all work out. I don't know. I don't know the future, so I can't say one thing or not or the other. But yeah, it could change. You still have to start small. I can't answer your question. I'm so behind, so we have to go to chanting. But I'll answer after service. Okay. Again, I'm so behind, and we have chanting to do, so please join me in invoking the Buddha's name and sharing the merit. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. So please rise for chanting. Incense in the censer, burning all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilled. As all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and Great Bodhisattva. Gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earthers, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of wonders. Slowly ripening, may we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. To the newly abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and of empty space and 3 periods of time. The eternally abiding Buddha, Traya, honored future Buddha, mindful Shri Great Wisdom, Bodhisattva, universal great conduct, Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva, Bodhisattva, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion, Bodhisattva, great strength, Bodhisattva, earth stored great vow, Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea light, Bodhisattva. Unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of eons. I now see and receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Pilgrim, briefly in this world I am grateful and joyful to hear the Lotus Sutra. Hard to be born a human again, but I might hope to hear once more the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha moon is hidden, the sun of Maitreya not yet arisen in the long night's darkness. In between only the Lotus Sutra sheds its the wonderful Dharma of the Lotus Sutra. Whoever copies it, reads it, lives it, they say will be called preacher of the fivefold Dharma, with his 6 rules, plans in the end. He who chants the Lotus Sutra is guarded by a heavenly host. He wanders the world without fear like a lion king. Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra, Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra, Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Please go to page 20. That time the Buddha said to Shariputra, did I not tell you earlier that when the Buddha's world on earth once had various causes and conditions and use similes, parable, and other expressions employing expedient means Vishala. It is all for the sake of converting the Bodhisattva. Moreover, Shariputra, make use of similes and parables to further clarify this doctrine. For and parables, those who are wise can obtain understanding. Suppose there was a rich man who had a large house. This house was very old and decrepit as well. The halls, so lofty, were in dangerous condition. The base pillars had rotted beams, and rafters were slanting and askew. Foundations and steps crumbling. The roof thatch was in disrepair, or missing. The tips of the eaves had dropped off. Some 500 birds lived in the house: kites, owls, hawks, eagles, crows, magpies, doves, pigeons, lizards, snakes, vipers, scorpions, centipedes, and millipeds, and ground beetles, weasels, raccoon, dogs, mice, rats. Hordes of evil creatures scurried this way and that place. As stink, excrement overflowed in streams of filth, where dung beetles and other creatures gathered. Foxes, wolves, and jackals gnawed and tore apart dead bodies, scattering bones and flesh about. Because of this, packs of dogs came racing to the spot to snatch and tear, driven by hunger and fear, searching everywhere for food, fighting, struggling, seizing, bearing dirt, snarling and howling. In every part of it there were goblins and trolls, yakshas, and evil spirits who feed on human flesh or on poisonous greed. Kumbhanda demons crouch on clumps of earth, or live 1 or 2 feet off the ground, idling, wandering here and there, amusing themselves according to their whim. Again, there were demons with large, tall bodies, naked in form, black and emaciated, constantly living there, who would cry out in loud, ugly voices, shouting and demanding food. There were other demons whose throats were like needles, or still other demons with heads the head of an ox, some feeding on human flesh, others devouring dogs. Such were the perils of this, threats and terrors beyond measure. This howled and rotting belonged to a certain man, and that man had gone nearby and had not been out for long, when a fire suddenly broke out in the house. In one moment all 4 sides and flames rose up in a mass. Brick, poles, beams, rafters, pillars exploded with a roar, quivering, splitting, broke into and came tumbling as walls and partitions collapsed. The various demons and spirits lifted their voices in a great wail. The hawks, eagles, and other birds, the Kumbhanda creatures driven and tormented by hunger and thirst, truly things to be feared. His sons could not stay in such perilous place, much less when it was all on fire. But the sons had no understand, and though they heard their father's warnings, they continued engrossed in their amusements, never ceasing their games. At the time the rich man thought to himself, my sons behave in this manner, adding to my grief and anguish. In this house at present there is not a single joy, and yet my sons wrapped up refuse to heed my instructions and will be destroyed by the fire. Then it occurred to him to deceive some. It means, and he said to his sons, I have many kinds of rare and marvelous toys, wonderful jeweled carriages, go-karts, deer carts, cars drawn by big oxen. They are out the gate right now, you must come out and see them. I have fashioned these cars explicitly for you. You may enjoy whichever you choose, play with them as you like. When the sons heard this description of the carts, once they competed when in dashing out of the house till they reached the open ground, away from all the peril and danger. When the rich man saw that his sons had escaped from the burning house and were standing in the crossroads, he seated himself on a lion's seat, congratulating himself in these words, now I am content and happy. The sons of mine have been very difficult to raise, ignorant, youthful, without understanding. They entered the perilous house with its many poisonous creatures and its goblins to be feared. The roaring flames of the great fire rose up on all four sides, yet these sons of mine still clung to their gains. But now I have saved, caused them to escape from danger. This is the reason, good people, I am content and happy. At the time the sons, seeing their father comfortably seated, all went to where he was and said to him, please give us the creatures you promised us earlier. You said if we came out of the house you'd give us 3 kinds of cards and we could choose whichever we wish. Now is the time to give them to us. The rich man was very wealthy and had many storehouses with gold, silver, lapis lazuli, seashells, agate, and other such precious things. He fashioned large carriages, beautifully and decorated these wonderful carriages. The man presented to each of his sons alike. The sons at that time joy, mounting the jeweled carriages, driving off in all directions, delighting and amusing themselves freely and without hindrance. I say this to you, Shadiput, I am like this rich man. I most venerable of the sages, am the father of this world, and all living beings are my children, but they are deeply attached to worldly pleasure and lacking in minds of wisdom. There are in the threefold world, it is like a burning house, replete with a multitude of sufferings, truly to be feared, constantly beset with the griefs and pains of birth, old age, sickness, and which are like the fires raging fearless. These the dust come, one has already left the burning house of the threefold world and dwells in tranquil quietude in the safety of forest and plain. But now this threefold world is all mine, and the living beings in it are all my help us to find constant enjoyment, to join the Bodhisattvas and the multitude of voice hearers in the Mount. Vehicle and proceeding directly to the place of practice. I tell you, Shadiput, you and the others are all my children, and I am a father to you. For repeated kalpas you have burned in the flames of manifold sufferings. I will save you all and cause you to escape from the threefold world. Although earlier I told you that you had attained extinction, that was only the end of birth and death. It was not true extinction. Now what is needed is simply that you acquire Buddha wisdom. If there are bodhisattvas here in this assembly, let them with a single mind listen to the true law of the Buddha. So the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, employ expedient means. The living beings convert by them are all bodhisattvas. If there are persons of little wisdom who are deeply attached to love and desire because they are that, the Buddha preaches for them the rule of suffering. Beings will be glad in mind, having gained what they never had before. If there are living beings who do not understand the root of suffering, attached to the causes of suffering, and cannot for a moment put them aside because they are that way, the Buddha uses expedient means to preach the way as to the cause of all suffer. It has its root in greed and desire. If greed and desire are wiped out, it will have no place to dwell to wipe out all suffer. This is called the third rule. For the sake of this rule, the rule of extinction, one practices the way, and when escapes from the bonds of suffering, this is called attaining emancipation. By what means can a person attain emancipation? Separating oneself from falsehood and delusion. This alone may be called emancipation. But if a person has not truly been able to emancipate himself from everything, then the Buddha will say he has not achieved true extinction, because such a person has not yet gained the unsurpassed way. My purpose is not to try to cause them to reach extinction. I am the Dharma King, free to do as I will with the law, to bring peace and safety to living beings. This is the reason I appear in the world. I say to you, Shariputra, this Dharma seal of mine I preach because I wish to bring benefit to them. You must not recklessly transmit it wherever you happen to wander. If there is someone who hears it, responds with joy and gratefully accept, you should know that that person is in the stage of non-regression. If there is someone who believes and accepts the law of this sutra, that person has already seen the Buddha of the past, has respectfully offered alms to them and listened to this. If there is someone who can believe what you preach, then that person has seen me and has also seen you and the other monks and the bodhisattvas. This Lotus Sutra found wisdom. If persons of shallow understanding hear it, they will be perplexed and fail to comprehend it. For this reason I expressly say to you, do not preach this sutra to persons who are without wisdom. But if there are those of keen capacities, wise and understand, of much learning and strong memory, who seek the Buddha way, then to persons such as this it is permissible to preach it. Let's go tab 9, page 171. Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the deep course of Prajnaparamita, relied on the five skandhas and found them equal same is true with feelings, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, how dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, in emptiness there is neither form nor feelings, no perception, formations nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of Ella, no interdependent origins and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no wonders, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas grounded in Prajnapada find no obstacles for their minds, having no obstacles. They overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. One should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth. The mantra of Prajnapada should therefore be proclaimed. Gate, gate, pada, samgat, bodhi swaha. Gate, gate, pada, samgate, bodhi swaha. Gate, gate, pada, samgate, bodhi swaha. Jinn beings are limitless. I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless. I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are infinite. I vow to learn them. Buddhahood is supreme. I vow to attain. I vow that from now until the end of my life and in all future lives, until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, that I will help all sentient beings in all realms of existence and their suffering. Namo Buddha, worthy of offerings, a proper and universal knowledge, perfect in understanding and conduct, skillful in leaving the world through liberation, perfect, complete understanding of all worldly dharma, unsurpassed, taming hero, teacher of gods and people, Buddha, the world honored one. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas. Take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master their practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold unities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Citing the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, numerous beings who give guidance and support along